Lords, it is a privilege to follow Baroness Campbell Surbiton. My Lords, I'd like to welcome this bill too, because it presents us with the opportunity to tidy up, to consolidate and to put equality legislation on a safer footing. When I reflect on the last 11 years I've spent in your Lordship's house, it's been an extraordinary journey. And I want to pay tribute to this house, to the conscious choices that we made in that journey. For me, it started off pretty badly with that age of consent debate. Some of you may remember. It was a terrible and at some times very wounding experience. But every subsequent step we have taken towards equality, we have done so in this house voluntarily. A step taken in partnership with the other place. We've worked together in this house for equality, for women, for racial minorities, for religious groups, for people with disability, for age, and particularly for me, for the gay community. It's a journey for which I am incredibly proud, but more importantly, it's a journey for which I am incredibly grateful. In front of us now is a choice. We can build on this tradition and help this bill find safe passage onto the statute book, or we can use this bill as a mechanism to refight the battles of the past. So I want to appeal to noble lords, and I'm sorry that the noble Baroness O'Cahoyne is not in her place. I want to appeal to noble lords. Do not reopen those debates which we have worked so hard to resolve over the last decade. Do not use this bill in a destructive way. Use this bill to heal, not to divide. Let me turn to my noble friends on the front bench. Can I give notice to them of two significant provisions I will seek, with the support of others, to add to this bill? The first concerns civil partnerships. This week marks the 4th year since the first civil partnerships were formed. Over those 4 years, civil partnerships have been a huge success. And even their fiercest critics cannot deny the overwhelming benefits they have brought to the gay community, to gay men, to lesbians, and to the wider community as a whole. I, with your help, want to reverse the current ban on civil partnerships taking place on religious premises. I think it is wrong to ban civil partnerships from churches and religious institutions. I equally think it would be wrong to force churches and religious institutions to host civil partnerships against their will. As many of you are aware, there are a number of religious organisations that would like to host civil partnerships. The Quakers, for example. My lords, this house has a tradition of standing up for religious freedoms. It must be a matter for churches and religious organisations to decide for themselves. But having decided, the law should not stand in their way. I hope I will have the support of these benches, both front and back, of the benches around the house, and in particular from the Lord Spiritual, in achieving this endeavour. My lords, I only seek to heal. I do not seek to divide. Now, my lords,
Well, since I think I invented the civil partnership bill in my own bill, as I understand it, the noble lord is not saying that we should call it marriage. He's saying something less than that. Is that right?
I don't mind what we call it. I've heard marriage described in many ways in itself. The second issue I wanted to raise relates to one class of people who are not protected from employment discrimination because of their sexuality. I'd also like to welcome the refinement of the employment regulations contained within this bill. In crafting our legislation, all those years ago, you may remember, we allowed one exemption and one exemption only. That exemption was for the clergy. My lords, this is not an attack on the church. But I do not believe that anybody should be able to be sacked or persecuted from their job or their vocation because of their sexuality. I understand some of the controversial nature of what I am proposing, but persecution, my lords, is persecution. And priests being persecuted is something we should have done away with a long, long time ago.
Order.
Whether the noble lord would accept that the stance which churches take in this matter is, if you like, sexually neutral. It's about the long-standing belief which Christians and other religions hold, that sexual relationships appropriately belong within marriage. So there's an equal intolerance towards sexual relationships of a heterosexual kind as a homosexual kind on behalf of the faith communities. It isn't a specific thing about a particular sexual orientation.
The Right Reverend Prelate would, I hope, accept that you cannot sack a heterosexual for, well, they're protected under employment discrimination for having an affair outside of marriage, whereas the exemption here is simply on the basis of sexuality. I think that's the point I'm getting to.
I'm sure that we don't want to prolong this, but I do think that the noble lord misunderstands the whole way in which the faith communities operate in these matters, but that must be a debate for a future occasion.
I hope to provide an amendment to frame such a debate. My lords, I look at this bill and I see possibilities. The possibilities that Martin Luther King talked about in his I Have a Dream speech. And you may recall he said that one day he could see the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners sitting at the table of brotherhood. My lords, I am a descendant of the sons of former slaves, and I know there are descendants of the sons of former slave owners amongst us. And in this chamber, perhaps we can create a table of brotherhood. In this place, we do good, and we have done over the years. He went on to say that he hoped that his children could live in a nation where they were judged by the content of their character and not by the colour of their skin. And indeed, I would add gender, sexuality, age and disability. And this bill is all about that. This bill is about being judged on the content of our character. Judge us on who we are and the way we behave. This is an opportunity to make that dream come ever closer to reality. It's a chance to take one step in a journey together. The chance to finish this work in this Parliament with a display of the same spirit I've seen over the last 11 years. And so it is with both pride and gratitude, with hope and great optimism, that I welcome this bill.
My lords, I shall resist the temptation to follow the noble Lord Alli down the delicate path upon which he walked. But if I might, at the outset, I'd like to apologise to the